Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Southall. I'm the candidate for the People's Party of Canada in Kings-Hants, and I'm delighted to be interviewed here by, and am I pronouncing it right? Kuunda?
Yeah, Kuunda.
Kuunda. So, I've been following him on Facebook. I appreciate him. Whether he agrees with me or not, I was just saying to him, God bless him, if he believes it. So, go ahead.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'll start you off on one of the questions you might be a little more familiar with. What is your personal stance on concealed carry?
I really don't have one. I don't have my own gun license. It's not something that I personally engage in as a sport. I mean, there's a lot to think about on it. I would love to see more of a debate on it. But I don't think that that's an issue that I really has been asked of me to consider, and it's not one that I'd be prepared to answer on quite yet.
Okay, yeah, I'm mostly asking about it because there was an interesting podcast that Tim Moen with the Libertarian Party put on.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of cool podcasts, though I don't think he's running anybody east of Fredericton.
Unfortunately, but I think that more people are becoming libertarian. I got nothing wrong, bad to say about Tim. I think that, what any of these people that are willing to stand for the release, all the power to them. And I think that, people can benefit from learning more about libertarianism and authority. It's getting pretty loud. You want to go outside with it?
I was just thinking that.
Let's get out of everyone's hair. We're...
Okay, a couple other questions that I got for you. One big one that I know is really curious to a lot of people. Which local environmental problem is most concerning to you, and what would you like to see done about it?
I think the local concern that bothers me the most with the environment is plastics. I looked at a report that says that we eat about a credit card worth of plastics, mostly I believe coming from like the microbeads in these face products. But that is something that practically we can battle. I know in Nova Scotia we've just banned plastic bags. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily. It's entirely not a bad thing if we start moving towards more plastics. Now, there are some exemptions there which I do understand, such as for certain food with sending it and all that. But overall, if we could find ways to eliminate unneeded plastics from our environment and come up with more innovative solutions there for products, packaging, or I don't know, there's multiple uses for plastics. You can look at the phone and the stand and all that, right? So,
yeah.
I'm sure that as, we start using hemp more too, who knows what happens there. But anyways, go.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you some questions about that too eventually.
Oh,
but
sure.
On the plastics thing, there's a plant in Shubenacadie that processes and manufactures plastic bottles.
Yes, sir.
And they'd like to be using recycled plastic, but they have a problem getting plastic that's clean enough in Nova Scotia. It's a CBC article. I know how you feel about them.
Okay,
but,
I like reading their stuff because, whether they're right or wrong, at least you can understand where one side of the population is getting their information from.
For sure. But apparently we're importing our recycled plastic to use again from Ontario because their stuff's cleaner.
Why would that's curious. I mean, I'd have to do more research into it, but that is kind of interesting though, for sure. If you happen to see me on Facebook, send me that article, and then I can actually address it. I can send it to your Facebook page. I can make a comment on it, even on this particular video, what my follow-up response was, if that's
awesome.
Fine with you.
I appreciate it.
No worries.
I don't know if there's a nicer way to put this, but
I'll go as harsh as you want, Spy. I got thick skin.
Does your party have a strategy to address poverty aside from just oil and gas kind of related stuff?
Well, I think by reducing the cost of living, that's the biggest thing that's going to help these people in poverty. By making sure that for the first $15,000 you earn, so if you're in poverty, you're probably going to be spending most of your time in that area. You're not going to have any taxes. So that's absolutely going to be huge. As well with the carbon tax. I made the comment earlier that I know people that have a 2010 hand-me-down Honda Civic and they can't even afford to put winter tires on it, let alone fill it up to full every time. I was talking about myself. I'm not with the lobbyists, I don't have money, but I know it's all too real because I have to bite my tongue every time I'm thinking, am I going to be able to get to this donation, or should I just save it for another week?
Yeah. Being a bit of a libertarian myself, I've run into the idea of a flat tax before, and I'm not super in favor of a flat tax, but as far as one goes, and I'm not an expert by any means, but it seems like the one that's being proposed is a little bit too low for the low end and still a little bit too low on the high end.
I mean, I disagree. I'm actually very excited about our tax reforms. I think that's probably one of the top 3 things that I'm actually excited about. And I understand that people are going to have different views on that, absolutely. But I think that people that...
And tax cuts for people at the bottom is something we both agree is very welcome.
Yeah, I think most of the other parties, when they say that they do tax cuts for this middle class, well, the middle class doesn't exist anymore because of them and the different policies that they do. And in fact, if you look at the Liberals' tax policies, it seems to only be helping out the top echelon of those middle ones anyway, so it's not even the bottom echelon. So it's very backwards. It's very backwards to me how these guys are doing it.
That's how it certainly seems.
So we want to make it simple. Two basic tax rates, right? So you're going to have nothing tax on your first $15,000. Then from $15,000 up to $100,000, that $85,000 there is going to be taxed just at 15%. And then above that, $100,000, 25% a quarter will go. For businesses, a flat tax of 10%, no carbon tax, and abolish capital gains.
And while I disagree with the numbers and I disagree with the capital gains tax reform kind of thing, I also think that things definitely need to be radically simplified. What's your stance on the widespread use of glyphosate?
Glyphosate? Oh man, there's one of our candidates right now, Adam Gray, who is running exclusively because
is
of
he
this
one of the guys in New Brunswick?
The People's Party. No, he's in Ontario.
Okay.
But I myself haven't been exposed to the knowledge on it other than the posts and the sharing that he's brought. So I'm sure that, I mean, us People's Party people get together quite a bit to have internal debates, discussions, and inform each other.
That's
so
good.
Following up, I'm actually going to message him about it, find out all the details, and then post that onto this video with the other comment that I promised you. Once I see this video, I'll know what I actually promised.
Awesome. I
try not to make too
that.
many of those as a new politician, because, you know, I just speak real to people. You might like what I say, you might not like what I say, but it's just ideas.
For sure. I didn't have this one written down, but I asked a little bit of Martha, so I figure I might as well ask you as well. What's your stance on the recreational cannabis reforms, and is not to conflate the two, but what would you do to help out registered medical cannabis users?
Well, Maxime hasn't spoken on this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be walking out onto a little bit of a ledge here. Maxime allows us to do that where we have a free vote, we don't have a party whip, so I can express my opinions on this. Isn't it great to feel a little bit of freedom as a candidate? And so
and it's great to have you answer that question right off without my even needing to ask.
But did other people hum and haw? Anyway, I'm just going to give you my honest opinion of it. Do I think marijuana helps people? I think absolutely. I know it's helped me, myself, absolutely. Do I think that we need to actually consider making it much more known to the public the dangers up until 25 of developing different mental issues? I've known people who have suffered in different ways, and I know why they suffer because they've told me. And you know what? When you're young, go out there, work, make hay while the sun shines, make friends, and invest in all those ways. But, you know, you don't need to make yourself a perpetual smoker by any means.
It's safer than being a perpetual drinker. But
absolutely, and this is coming from a former one, right? And as I mentioned in there, I quit drinking. I was an alcoholic. I used to live in St. John's, Newfoundland. And so I know what it is to have that feeling of, I need this to feel okay.
And I certainly didn't mean that as a jab or anything.
No, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I didn't take it as a jab. It's important to talk about. But I think that there still can be somewhat of a psychological effect there with it. And I would like to see people maybe a bit more older. Now, to actually get to the policies and the business side of it, I think that it's absolutely been bungled. The government's losing money on it. They're building buildings in the time when you ship everything and you don't need to have those house overhead costs. They're bungling up everything to do with the new edible products coming out. Everything basically has no THC in it anyways, and the exorbitant prices. And they've basically gone in and raided all these people who took the risk to get the reward of doing these dispensaries before it was even, you know, officially legalized. I would like to see it get back to something like that, but that's just my opinion right now, and I do what I know until I know better, and then I maybe do better. So add your comments into this, because I will be watching this and reading it over, and we'll see, maybe I'll learn something today.
Thanks, and I appreciate your time and your willingness to answer all my
Anytime.
questions.
If you want to come back together sometime, I know you got an audience, and I'd like to talk to people. So
awesome, and it was great finally meeting you.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Awesome. Have a good one.
You too.